Coffee is my life. I'm a coffee professional, and basically, I'm paid to drink coffee. How cool is that? How we evaluate the coffee. So we have little bowls in which we put the coffee, we put the hot water into this, and then, using a spoon, we aspirate it, slurp it throughout the palate to feel the taste of this coffee. And every single coffee is evaluated in this way. Now, this is what happens at the farms where the coffee is grown. This is what happens in the roasteries where every coffee is roasted. And again, in the cafes where the baristas have to establish a recipe how that coffee should taste like. And it's always scored out of 100. And it's 80 or more, it is considered a specialty coffee. If it's less, it's just a commercial coffee. And 95% of the coffee is the commercial grade. But let's say we're gonna have a specialty coffee. How could it taste like? From my experience, I can tell you, it tastes nothing but bitter. It can be fruity, it can be floral, it could be nutty. Now I have a little question for you. Please raise your hand if you think that black coffee without sugar, without any milk, tastes bitter. Black coffee bitter? Thank you very much. Now, if you think that black coffee tastes bitter, most probably you have never had a good coffee brewed in a proper way. Ladies and gentlemen, coffee primarily tastes very sweet. It might be surprising, but properly brewed coffee is very sweet cup. That's putting the sugar in it would be going a bit over. But now, before the coffee could be brewed, it needs to go through several stages. It needs to be harvested, it needs to be roasted, processed, and then roasted. So, starting at the farm at the beginning, the coffee grows on coffee trees, and those trees produce coffee cherries. Now, we need to get those seeds that are inside of this cherry. We need to extract them, but we need to do it straight away after the coffee has been picked. And picking is a very important part of the process. It is assumed that picking the coffee is the single most important factor when it comes to quality of the final cup. Because imagine that somebody picks unripe, rotten, or infected cherries, and this coffee would taste nothing like sweet. But when you pick only the ripest cherries, only the right ones, you can get the sweet cup in the end. And the coffee is processed in two major ways. One of them is washed. When you put the coffee in water, then it ferments, and the mucilage then is washed off. Otherwise, it could be dry method, when the cherries are dried on the sun. But the choice of this method mostly depends on the climate the coffee is grown. Now, after the coffee has been processed, it's still raw, it's still a green bean, which then needs to be roasted. And roasting is a very complex process, which I'm not going to go into too much detail with that, but basically it's like making a popcorn. You just put the beans into the roaster, then you wait until they get brown, until they pop, and soon after that, you release them. And that's the roasted coffee. Now, this process is very important for one very important reason. After the coffee has been roasted, it has only about a month to be fresh, to be tasting sweet, to taste like chocolates, citrus, or whatever you like your coffee to taste like. Now, when it comes to brewing coffee, it takes years to learn to make it very well. And there are many competitions in brewing coffee. So you can really aim towards this mastery, but it's a bit of a guessing game always. You're always within a certain range. But let's come back to the coffee that's commercial, what most people drink. And that's the coffee I also drink myself quite a lot. The cherries that are picked from the trees sometimes are not the ones we would like. They're not the ripest ones. And they're not gonna taste very nice. Presumably sour, fermented, maybe a bit mushroomy. You don't want that in your coffee. And to make sure all these undesired flavors don't end up in your cup, you roast it very, very dark. You basically burn the coffee. But when you burn the coffee, it doesn't have any undesired flavors, but it's never gonna get any desired flavors. And you end up with a cup of coffee that tastes like leather, ash, carbon, and yes, it's gonna be very bitter, as all burnt things are. So if you end up with a coffee that's very bitter, please put sugar inside of this cup, because the last thing I would like you to do is to drink a coffee you would not enjoy. So let's say you want to get a good cup of coffee. Maybe you want to brew it at home. Where do you get the beans? Ideally, go to a cafe which serves good coffee, and the barista behind the bar will help you choose what's right for you and your preferences. Otherwise, you can go straight to the roastery, and I think this is a very natural choice, just as you would buy bread from a bakery. If you want to buy a cup of coffee, a ready-made drink that you can enjoy, there are two questions you can find out what kind of quality you can expect from that place. So please remember that. Those two questions will help you to get a very good cup of coffee wherever you go. The first one, ask the barista, what kind of coffee is it gonna serve you? If he knows the region, its process, what it would taste like. Very basic information, but baristas need to know the product they're working with to brew it properly. And the second question, just ask him, where did he last try this coffee? He didn't taste it? I think you should run away. If he tasted it in the morning, or ideally up to an hour ago, it's still gonna be a very good cup, because it means that they care about the product enough to taste it and control the taste of the coffee they're serving. But why do people drink coffee? Let's start with maybe not such an obvious one. There are several health benefits you get from drinking coffee. And of course, there's caffeine. Most of you know what the effects are. You can wake up more easily, you're a bit more alert, it helps you to do repetitive tasks. It also helps you with physical endurance. So if you're going for a run or a long cycle, drink a cup of coffee, and it's gonna help you go through that more easily. Also, caffeine is very good at fighting against headache, because it increases your blood pressure and helps the blood to circulate through your brain. Very helpful. But also there are different types of health benefits with that. It is proved that the coffee has almost 3 times more oxidants than a glass of red wine, which comes from the way coffee is grown. Because basically, coffee is a fruit. And as we all know, fruits are healthy, and we should eat them at least 5 times a day. Or at least that's what they recommend us. Now, there's also a big social aspect to drinking coffee. Presumably, if you go for a meeting with someone and you don't have a good place or excuse for that, you can just ask him to go for a coffee. It is a perfect way to meet with your client, maybe have a job interview, or just meet with your friend who you haven't met for a long time. Also, if you're an office worker, whenever you feel bored or you don't feel as productive as you are, you think, oh, maybe that's perfect time to go grab a cup of coffee. So go to a cafe, and it's a completely different environment what is your cubicle back in your office. There's busy environment, there are many people walking in, the smell of coffee, maybe the music in the background, and those lovely baristas you'd love to have a chat with over something that's completely not related to your work. Maybe your weekend plans, which can kind of feel a bit more excited about your day and about your life than sitting back in the office in front of the computer. Now, some people actually drink coffee primarily for its taste. And I'm one of those people. I'm not necessarily interested in the caffeine effects of the coffee. I'm not drinking a cup of coffee the first thing in the morning. I can handle that. But what I'm looking for in coffee is its taste, the sensory experience. And I'm going to share with you a little story about it for what coffee can taste like and what kind of experience it gives. So, about a week ago, a friend of mine practicing for one of the coffee competitions, she brewed a cup of coffee. And she asked me to try it, whether it's good or not. I just smelled it, tried it, and I was mind blown. Because this coffee reminded me of freshly baked bread. Now, particularly about an experience I had when I was about 7 years old. Back at the time, every single day, I used to go with my father to a bakery down the road to get a freshly baked bread. They were just putting it on the shelves. And I can still remember the smell of that freshly baked bread, the warmth of that piece of bread, and this crisp crust, which I couldn't wait just to taste it. It was so delicious. But also, there was a kind of bonding experience with my father. We were building a relationship between father and son. Now, if a cup of coffee can remind me of such an experience back from my childhood, this is very powerful. And as a coffee professional, it is my mission to help people explore the world of coffee. Because I want them to taste something that's amazing, that they don't think coffee would taste like. Something that could bring those experiences, remind them of something. Because there's such a potential in every cup of coffee. Now, if you still want to drink any coffee you like, is it an instant coffee, is it a cheap coffee you buy in the supermarket, that's perfectly fine. If you want to put milk and tons of sugar in it, that's okay. Why? Because the most important thing when it comes to drinking coffee is for you to enjoy it. And I don't care what you want to put in your coffee to enjoy it. Whether it's a soya caramel latte, which every barista hates to make, to be honest. I'm fine with that, because I want you to enjoy that cup of coffee. But, I'm a bit cheeky. I'd like to invite you to give it a try. Go to a cafe, this fancy one when you have hipster baristas behind the bar thinking they know everything about coffee. Ask them, what coffee are they going to serve you? What does it taste like? Have they dialed it in this morning? And if you see there's a potential for something that's very high quality, please try it. Try it without sugar, just straight, black. And whether you like it or not, think about how it tastes like. And if it tastes nothing like coffee, that's awesome. I remember when one day I served a customer a cup of coffee. It was a filter coffee, so it wasn't very strong or didn't have any syrupy body. And he said, that's a very nice tea. I'm like, actually it's a coffee, but it's brewed in a way that's kind of accentuates this tea-like body. I know it tastes a bit like Assam and it has some florals coming through, but I like that you appreciate that this cup of coffee tastes like tea, because that's what coffee can taste like as well. So, regardless of how you like your coffee, how you enjoy it, please try to maybe think a little bit outside of the box what coffee could be that you can actually really enjoy this cup of coffee, that can remind you of something maybe back from your childhood, as it was for me, or maybe just it's gonna help you go through the day, or it will be an excuse to meet with someone. Because coffee is worth drinking. I believe coffee can be life-changing, and I believe life is too short to drink bad coffee. But the choice is up to you. Thank you very much.